Far from home, no one will ever know our names, but the bard songs will remain. Tomorrow all will be known, and you're not alone, so don't be afraid in the dark and cold, but the bard songs will remain. They all will remain in my thoughts and in my dreams. They're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves and men and elves, come close your eyes. Tomorrow will take us away, far from home. No one will ever know our names, but the bard songs will remain. They all will remain.
Well, hi everyone, it is me, the Chipmunk, and welcome to this special review of Spider-Woman Pregnant, our finale. As you know, I've been following this storyline since it first became known that Spider-Woman would be pregnant in the comic books, and I wanted to follow this story. I apologize for not getting these issues out sooner. I had been reviewing each issue separately. However, there was a delay, so we will be reviewing issues 3 and 4, the last two chapters of this pregnancy of Spider-Woman, together. Now, I'm also going to review the whole series together as a whole and give you my take on the story, but also a few other things as well. What I think is going to happen with this story, and what it means, and what it could mean for other comic books. But before we get into all that, let me get right into this story here. So, when we left off at issue number 2, Spider-Woman was in this maternity hospital that existed in another dimension for superpowered beings and aliens where they could go and get help with their extraordinary pregnancies. And when this happened, the Skrulls came in, they tried to take over the hospital, this hospital out there in this other dimension, and Spider-Woman and the other pregnant women found themselves hostage. So we left off with them realizing they were in another dimension, that it wasn't going to be easy for anybody to come and get them, as the Skrulls had sealed the place off. And basically that's what happens in the last of these two issues, 3 and 4. It's Spider-Woman trying to find a way to get out of this hospital and trying to find a way to get everybody else out safely. She ends up having to do what happens in a lot of these hostage situation type of storylines, where you have to go from point A to point B to point C to point D. In other words, she gets into communication with Miss Marvel and she tells her, you've got to find this person, and then you have to go and find this other person because the first person cannot really help you with everything. You actually have to find this other guy who can help you get out of the hospital and find the extra-dimensional doorway in order to get back to Earth and get everybody out safely. So that's what issues, like I said, 3 and 4 are about. It's trying to get out of this hospital, trying to save everybody, all the while Spider-Woman trying to protect her unborn child and not put herself into too much danger. So Spider-Woman is told that in order to be able to find a way out of this place and get access to the extra-dimensional portal, she needs to find this place called the Shelving Matrix, which basically is a place where these severed heads of these alien beings are stored. They're basically scientists and real technical know-hows that they are stored in this hospital, this extra-dimensional hospital, kind of like on Futurama. Anyway, she takes one of these smart heads up to the control panel to try and access the extra-dimensional doorway and try to get out. However, after all this time, it looks like they're finally going to get out. The talking head guy in the jar says it's going to take about 6 hours for him to really access the portal and get them out. As she's doing this, she's talking to Miss Marvel, who's on Earth, and they're in communication, and she tells Spider-Woman that the reason why the Skrulls invaded the hospital is that they're looking for a Skrull prince. He's sick, he has cancer, and he's in the hospital. And she didn't want to tell her this because she knew Spider-Woman would try to rescue him. So, of course, that's what she ends up doing. She ends up trying to rescue the kid and getting him out. Just as she finds him and they're getting away and she's going to take him to the extra-dimensional doorway where they can get out, the Skrulls start to burst in. Now, Spider-Woman prepares to fight the Skrulls, but just as she does this, she starts to go into labor. It's a little bit soon, not really life-threatening, but it's a little bit soon for the baby to be born, so she's kind of worried. So that's where issue 3 really ends, and in issue 4 we see that basically what happens is Spider-Woman gets away with this Skrull prince. He was only about 13 years old or so. And basically what has to happen is before they can completely get away, he has to help deliver Spider-Woman's baby through C-section. It turns out he's a pretty smart kid, very handy with things, and they're able to do this. And so Spider-Woman's baby is born healthy and safe, a baby boy. And after this, they're able to sew her up real quick just as the Skrulls burst in. Spider-Woman takes care of them, saves the day, and in the end, everyone gets back to Earth safe and sound. Spider-Woman, her little baby boy, the Skrull Prince, and everybody end up safe and sound. So that was a great ending, and I liked it very much. Now let me get into the positives about this complete storyline, all through issues 1 through 4. I liked it. It was good. I liked the fact that they were not afraid to show off the pregnancy, to show off her big belly, and have her in tight clothes and things like that. And I like the fact that we got to see a lot of really good drawn images of Spider-Woman pregnant. The disappointing thing is that we had no bare belly scenes. Now, I didn't really have any high expectations that we would see bare belly scenes. I knew that was hoping for too much, but you kind of hope deep down they wouldn't be afraid to show off her belly. But that was just hoping for too much. But even so, all 4 of these issues dealing with this storyline of Spider-Woman's pregnancy were great, and I love the story. And that brings me, of course, inevitably to another storyline that involved a spider character called Spider-Man and his then pregnant wife, Mary Jane. Now, I know you're all getting tired of me going on about the pregnancy of Mary Jane and Spider-Man, but it's hard not to bring this up, especially when we're dealing with a storyline like this that also involves a spider superhero character, and especially one that's having a baby. Now, for those of you who have seen my video about the pregnancy of Mary Jane, you all know how I hated that story, and how I hated what they did to Mary Jane, her pregnancy, her baby, and what they ultimately did to Spider-Man himself. They destroyed his family, and they destroyed his wife and his child by erasing them from the continuity of Spider-Man, just because Marvel felt that Spider-Man should stay single and never have a wife or a family. That was way back in the 90s, and when that pregnancy storyline started, and they dissolved his marriage, of course, back in 2007. So when I heard this story that they were going to make Spider-Woman pregnant and have that written into her storyline, I was very skeptical. I always thought, reading these issues, I thought the pregnancy is not going to end well. It's going to end in a miscarriage, death, or the baby will be kidnapped, stolen. Something horrible will happen, because usually that's what Marvel does. It's what they did to Spider-Man, after all. In the tragic storyline that took place back in the 90s, of course, Spider-Man Revelations. Revelations, compared to this story, with Spider-Woman being pregnant, are 2 vastly different storylines and yet somewhat similar. Here in the storyline of Spider-Woman being pregnant, at the end of issue 4, this is the ending that we should have had way back in the 90s with Spider-Man Revelations. Instead of Mary Jane's pregnancy ending in miscarriage and the death of her daughter and the death of Spider-Man's daughter, it should have ended on a happy note. It should have ended better. And when I was reading the last of the story, it just hit me that, my word, this is what we should have had in Spider-Man. And as a Spider-Man fan, I don't understand why we can't have it. And there is no good reason why Spider-Man cannot have a wife and child of his own. Just recently, they did an alternate storyline where Spider-Man and Mary Jane worked together, and they did have a child. And you know what? People liked it. It was a great storyline. And Marvel will not allow that story to be told in the mainstream Marvel Universe. They will not allow Spider-Man to have a wife, and they will certainly not allow him to ever have a child, ever again. And that is a tragedy. If we've learned one thing about Marvel, it's that when they want a character to have a baby and to have some kind of a family life, well, they can do that, and they can do it in a good way. Obviously, at least for now, they want Spider-Woman to have a child and to have a successful pregnancy because that's what they've done. So there's no excuse not to do that in Spider-Man. It's not a question of can't. They just won't. And it's so sad. Now, as for what will happen in the future with Spider-Woman, I don't know. My instinct is that this will not last because it's too much of a good thing. If you remember nothing else about Marvel and their comic books, remember this. If it's a good idea and a good thing, Marvel will ruin it. It will destroy it. This is too much of a good thing that's happening in Spider-Woman. I expect that at some point Marvel will simply go back to the status quo of, Spider-Woman being single and childless and all of that. Because if it's a good idea, Marvel will find a way to ruin it. That is the number one rule at Marvel, unfortunately. But at any rate, at least this series, for the time being, ended on a happy note. We got 4 issues of a good pregnancy. I wanted kind of more out of it, but it is what it is. So with all that being said, let's get right to our score. Okay, so the final score for the Spider-Woman pregnancy storyline is 2 pregnant women. It's good. It's not perfect. It's not the greatest I've ever seen, but it's certainly an improvement over other types of stories that have rarely involved pregnant superheroes, or pregnancy at all in any kind of comic book. So I say if you find these 4 issues in the comic book store somewhere, well, get them and add them to your collection. I don't think you'll regret it at all. Well, as I said when I started this journey with Spider-Woman, I would only continue it as long as the pregnancy lasted in the storyline. And now that has come to an end, and so our time with Spider-Woman has come to an end as well. I will not be following any more issues of Spider-Woman or any other comic book. Because like I've said, with everything that's happened with Spider-Man and the pregnancy of Mary Jane, I've just been really put off on reading comic books anymore these days. This was a nice surprise, though. This storyline involving Spider-Woman's pregnancy. I love the journey and I love the 4 issues. They're good, and like I said, I recommend them to anybody who is a pregnancy lover. And so, with that being said, I thank you all for tuning in to this special review. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We did 4 issues. We had to do 2 in 1 here because I didn't get them all timed just right, unfortunately. But it's been a wonderful journey, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Well, that is all for now, everybody, and that is it for this special review of Spider-Woman's pregnancy. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Until then, this is the Chipmunk. Bye for now.